Yusuff,
Yes.
my gosh, it's been what, 2.5 years since we met? You have just exploded into the social media hemisphere, right? I mean, who would have thunk? 20 years after you retired, and here you are at a time when most people are winding down their lives. You are at the top of your powers. Crazy. What do you think?
Correction there. 20 years after I retired.
20 years after you
I
retired,
retired in 1999 when I
when you were
was...
53?
That's right.
53? And now you're 73. You've never looked healthier. You've never looked more vibrant. You've just come back from the Serengeti. You're going to go again to the Serengeti in March, February, right?
Antarctica
Next
next month.
I've lost count. 140 countries since you retired. You've driven around the African continent 3 times. You've driven London, Malaysia 3 times. South America at least twice. How do you do it? I mean, okay, so let's start with the recipes, right? The recipes for setting yourself up for this kind of lifestyle started way, way before, when you were in your corporate life. Tell us about that time.
Well, I've always maintained that you should have a strategic vision of your life. I've always said that life comprises 3 phases. You spend about 30% of your life trying to get a degree and education, which is about 23 years, and then once you graduate, you work for maybe 40 years and you retire at 60. So if the average lifespan of a Malaysian male is 76, that would mean you would have worked for nearly 50% of your life, and getting an education is 30%, leaving you only 20% of life to retire.
Which is crazy. It's nowhere near, and that's if you get to 76. I mean, not everybody, and I know the stats say what they are, that your average lifespan will be 76, 78 years old, and I think in America it's 83. But so many of my friends or my peer group are going, heart attacks, strokes, cancer, all kinds of crazy non-communicable diseases. That's if you get to that age. So, I mean, when I first met you 3 years ago, I thought, my God, this guy is someone that I think every Malaysian should meet and look up to, because you've just figured it out. You figured it out from a long time ago.
Yes, I think you need to have a strategic vision of life. As I said just now, that if you look at life as a series of phases, that the main phase of your life is your work phase, which is about 40% of your life, and this is where what you do in that phase will determine what will happen in the third phase and the third and final phase of your life. The middle phase of your life, your working phase, is actually supposed to be that part where you're supposed to postpone consumption. You're supposed to invest, and investment requires savings. Saving requires a postponement of consumption. But I see the millennials these days, they have a few credit cards, and savings is the furthest thing from their mind. They go on holidays using the credit card. They live life without ever thinking about the future. So I believe, and that we old timers, we still believe that when it's time for work, you work. There will be a time for you to come and play. So if you spend a bit of time in the work phase of your life to start thinking and working about working for an investment portfolio for yourself, so that when you retire, there will be an income stream for you to spend, instead of spending 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night working for your boss. I mean, if you don't do something about your own investment portfolio for your future, you're going to find that by the time you retire, you're going to be like the 80% of retirees, who I call cliche retirees.
Yeah.
People who spend their retirement driving their grandchildren to school, becoming spare babysitters, and that kind of thing, So retirement should be the phase of life where you are free from all this nonsense. You're free to do whatever you like, and what you want to do in retirement, you must start thinking about maybe 10 to 15 years before you retire.
Did you know? Did you have an inkling of what was at stake when you first started work? Because not everybody is as switched on. I mean, hindsight is 20/20, right? But when you're in the thick of action, when you've just started your job in your mid-20s, late 20s, mid-30s, early 30s, you're trying to win favor with your boss, you're trying to get promoted, and if you're only spending 80-90% of your time in the workforce, and going out and doing for yourselves, whereas your colleagues are there 100% of the time. It's easier said than done. Do you think that you had this hindsight at that time?
I don't think it's a question of taking away time from your work for yourself. Okay, I'm saying that you're paid to work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, isn't it? Most people come to work at 7:30 and they go home at 9, working
their entire lives.
Yeah, working their butt out for their employers. Yeah. And like I said, the toilet roll philosophy, that your employer treats you like a toilet roll. Yeah. They use you, and the time comes at 60 when you got to go off, they just chuck the center part of the toilet roll and they fill up the toilet roll space with another toilet roll. Yeah. So you must be aware that you have to spend a bit of time for yourself, in the sense that you must focus on building a robust investment portfolio. You have to save a little bit, because if you want to invest, you have to save. Saving means postponing consumption. Yeah. So you have to postpone consumption during the work phase of your life, which is actually for you to work. But my point is that don't work only for your employer. Work also for yourself. Yeah. While you're looking after your employer's interest, put an ear out for what you can invest in. What you can buy. For example, you could buy a piece of land or property or stocks, for example, stocks and shares. Invest for the long term. You buy based on long-term projection of the stocks and shares that you are investing in, not short term. Yeah.
What do you think of this new modern notion of Gen Ys and Gen Zs? You know how there's a phrase called YOLO, which is you only live once, and I understand how they think. I mean, Josh, behind the camera here, he understands. He's only like 28, 29 years old. He understands this concept because he's seen people like me, and then I guess before that you. Sometimes we don't make it to middle agehood. Maybe sometimes we fall sick. Maybe we so they see all these things happening. They see all the things happening around the world, like the global financial crisis. And they think, screw it, right? I'm just going to do it now because I might not make it in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. What do you think of that notion? This whole YOLO thing.
Okay, with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, I'm 73, remember? So I've been through it all. I've seen it. So, but many people say, "Oh, you're past your use by date." What you say is irrelevant. What you say is irrelevant. Many people look at retirees as a has-been. Actually, your mind never ceases to grow. You never stop learning. And I think it is a crime to retire people off at 65 or 70, when actually, in terms of their mind, they're at the peak of their performance capabilities. So, okay, let's look at it at three groups of people. The YOLOs, which are the middle group, the people who are still working now. Let's start looking at those people who've just graduated. I mean, the strategic objective must be to have a good life. To have a good life means there is happiness, there's enough money to spend, to do what you like. So for those graduates who just finished university, my advice to them is, as soon as you finish university, don't get a permanent job. Don't get a permanent job. Okay. Get a job that pays you enough for you to travel. In other words, as soon as you graduate, go on a 2-year sabbatical, for example. Most of the Americans, most of the Europeans.
That's what they do.
Yeah,
the gap year thing.
Yeah, they as soon as they graduate, they just work their way out. They work on a ship, for example. They wash dishes, or they drive a truck, or they drive a bus, or they work at a restaurant, just to get them enough money to see them by. And then that first 2 years, you then enjoy your life. Okay. But we Malaysians, my observation is that the moment you graduate, you get a job. You get a permanent job. And the moment you get a permanent job, the first thing they ever do is, I want to buy a car.
Buy a bloody car.
Yeah, you tie yourself in knots over higher purchase payments, and many of them even commit to buy a house. Can you imagine?
Well, no, that's an argument in favor of that, don't you think? Because the rules of investing is the earlier you start, the longer a time frame you have for that thing to compound in value and to grow in capital gains. So I can see the point of that. But I see also the point that if you buy a house and you get tied down in a mortgage, that's it, you're in jail for the next 25, 30, 40 years.
So anyway, anybody who's graduated at 23, there's no way they can save enough to invest, okay? For the first 3 or 4 years of their life, they have to build up some kind of a excess or disposable income that they can set aside for investment. So as soon as you graduate, the first 3-4 years, no way you can save to invest into whatever you want to invest in. So forget about that, So I think investment will come, but the point at which you start serious investment in putting cash aside for stocks, for land, for property or whatever, will come around about maybe the 30s or early 30s or late 20s, when you've got a storehouse of, not storehouse, a little small stockpile of savings. Because your first couple of years, you're earning enough just to pay your way through, your subsistence living, and then you want to buy your car, you want to do this, you want to do that. Okay, never mind. You can do that. But this serious investment targeted for a steady income stream for the future must come at around about 30, where 29, 28, 30, where then you have enough, I suppose, intelligence and sense and so on to look at what is a good investment, The point is, you have to start thinking about investing. All the so-called YOLOs and all that, not the YOLOs. I mean, they are just thinking of spending, of consumption. Investment is equal to savings. Savings is postponing consumption, isn't it? Yeah. And the worst thing is that now it's so easy to get a credit card. I mean, you go on holiday, you charge it to your credit card. You come back for the next 5 years, you pay your credit card charges at installment interest rates, which are ridiculous.
18 to 24
yes,
percent a year.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, crazy.
So I don't know. When I was working, I can count how many cars I've had ever since I've been working. Okay,
really? Yeah.
I can count.
What cars did you have?
The first car I bought is a second-hand car. Second car I bought is a second-hand car, and then the third car I bought is a Volvo. And the fourth car is a Volvo, and then the fifth car that I have is all company provided.
That's how you do it. That's how you beat the system. You get high enough to get a company car.
Yeah, and then my present car is a 27-year-old car. I bought it 27 years ago.
What car is that?
It's a little sports car, Mitsubishi GTO, which is actually now
the
almost
3000 GTO, famous car.
It's almost an antique, classic car, which I love it. I love it very. It's still going on strong. Occasionally, it coughs a little bit here and there, it gets the flu and all that, but I love it. I mean, and these days, I mean, you don't need a car to go into KL. There's Grab
and
Grab. So overseas, in UK, US, no young men or young people will ever think about buying a car in the first 4 or 5 years of their working life.
Sometimes maybe they never buy a car at all.
They don't at all. So why is it that our kids, upon graduation, they want to buy a car?
Is it because we live in an economy that is built on consumption? Even the government says, hey, let's have a GDP 5%, 6% a year, and that is all based on the private sector buying stuff and spending stuff. So it's kind of like counterintuitive because they want the economy to grow. The government wants the economy to grow.
I don't think it's got anything to do with that. It's all got to do with what I would call personal discipline.
Yeah.
You want everything now. I mean, you failed the marshmallow test. You know the marshmallow test?
No, tell me.
You don't know what the marshmallow test?
Sounds vaguely obscene.
Stanford University did a test, marshmallow test, to assess kids. They say to the kid, here is one marshmallow now, but if you stop, you stop and wait for another 20 minutes, I'll give you 3 marshmallows. And then they see who are the kids who took the 1 marshmallow, which means instant gratification, and who are the kids who took the 3 marshmallows, which is 20 minutes later. And then they studied these guys. 30 years later, they found that the guys who take the 3 marshmallows,
is that right?
Yes, are better off than the guys who take only 1.
So you were that guy that took the 3 marshmallows after 20 minutes.
I would like to advise all these youngsters now, that try to be that the fellow who postponed consumption by taking the 3 marshmallows later rather than a single marshmallow now,
Did you learn that yourself, or was it your parents who taught you these things?
No, I think some of these things are actually you get born with it, that
Okay.
and also I suppose upbringing, my parents were not well off, they were just government servants. We were not poor, but we were not rich. But I learned how to value things, that nowadays the tear off society, the throwaway society is very bad. It breeds a psychological thing in your mind that nothing is permanent, nothing is valuable. You can have one use and you throw. So I think for with the benefit of hindsight, I think a bit of advice I can give to all these youngsters that
defer your consumption.
Yeah, defer consumption. The middle part of your life, the working phase of your life, which is about 30, 40, 50% of your life, 30% for 23 years to get a degree, another 40 years to work or 30 years to work, which is about 40%. If you retire at 60 minus 23 is about 37. 37 is about 50%, leaving you only 20% to retire, So this middle part, so the purpose or objective of your life is actually to shorten the working phase of your life, to maximize the earning that you can make during that period, and then to build up an investment portfolio that will see you through the last 30% of your life. Now, the objective obviously must be to try and make that last part of your life as large a proportion of your life as possible. So based on the average lifespan of a Malaysian male, which is 76, you spend 23 years to get a degree, you spend about 30 years to work if you retire at 60, therefore it leaves you about 23 years for you to retire. But I retired at 50 and I've spent 20 years already having fun, and I can tell you the last 20 years of my life has been the best part of my life. So it could be so for you guys too, you young millennials and all that.
Well, don't look at me, I'm not a young millennial. I wish I was.
So, and the other point is about marriage. Marriage, what I see these days about young people, they get married, husband, wife works, and then they leave their kids in the care of their maid. Worse still, they send it to some nursing home somewhere or whatever, while they go to work, I don't know, I'm an old-fashioned type. When I got married, my first request to my wife was, you don't need to work, Yeah, you don't need to work, because I think marriage is a partnership, One part of the partnership gets the bread, the other part of the partnership looks after the nest. That is why the kids these days have got no values. Many of them are, they're not properly brought up because they are being educated, being given values through television sets, through the internet, through friends. There is no supervision at all by the mother and the father. So ideally, if you want to have children, then one of you must sacrifice to at least in the first few years of the child's life to instill him with the values that you need to have a good life. And we are lucky because you and I, our mothers don't work, Our mothers gave their attention to us, and while our fathers go out to work, and our wants are not so ridiculously expensive wants like we want. These kids these days, they want an iPad, and then they want the latest iPad. When you get an iPad, I want an iPad Pro, and then you get Samsung. After the Samsung, you want Note 9, that kind of thing. You keep changing and changing. So this kind of consumption behavior is not good,
I remember you telling me when I first met you that you had your first child at the age of 23, and then your last child was also in your mid to late 20s. So but by the time you retired at the age of 53, your job is done. All 4 or 5 of your kids had gone through school, gone through university, and I think all went overseas for university, and your job was done, and you're only 53 years old. Was that a strategic decision on your part?
It was.
Or was it just fortuitous?
It was and it was not. I suppose I was fortunate because I married early.
Yeah.
I've known my girlfriend or my present wife long before we got married. In fact, we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary
You were
last
at the
year.
North Pole or something for your
On a piece of
golden
floating
ride?
ice
Fantastic.
in the North Pole, at the North Pole.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I've known my wife for a long time, before I got married. So I got married at 23. So at 24, we have our first child, And I had my last child, my fourth child, a daughter, when I was 30. Yeah, so can you imagine 30 plus 23 to go to university gives you exactly 53. So 53 was the signal year for me to stop work, and go and enjoy life. So, when you get married, try to get married early, and if you get married late, don't have too many babies later in your life, because theoretically now, the most expensive expenditure for modern people like us Malaysians, is actually education for your kids, apart from your car. And even your car is only 40,000-50,000, or maybe 150,000. But education for your kids, you send a kid to university overseas, is $500,000 for ringgit for medicine, for example.
Okay, just a little distraction then. Nowadays there's this growing school of thought that education and tertiary education universities is becoming a bit of a commercial affair, and that there's a bit of I guess it's almost kind of like there's a school of thought which says that you don't have to spend so much on your education anymore, because it's becoming a business. It is not so much about educating the child and preparing the child for the future. It's all about paying as much money as you can just to get the piece of paper. Do you subscribe to that? What do you think about that?
No, I think the reality is that our system still pays attention to a piece of paper that says you are a doctorate or you're a
undergrad of this or that,
graduate of this, that, and the other. That's a fact. Our system is based on that kind of a thing. But if you notice, many of the world's wealthiest people are really dropouts. Dropouts. So we need to learn, and if you look at places like China and Japan and all that, the amount of pressure they put on children to excel in studies is exactly like it here,
If you had to do it all over again with parenthood, right, and knowing what you know now about universities and about how successful people, some of them, they don't have university educations, would you push your kids through at universities?
I'm basically a very conservative fellow,
Okay.
I would still do whatever I've done. I would still put them through university, because university for me is a period in your education system where you transition from being under the protection and care of your parents at home to being let out into the world, testing the waters, so to speak, trying to get your own friends, trying to build your own life, trying to feel what it's like without the care of your parents, So
it's as much a learning experience.
It is, yes. So, I don't know, I found my time during university days was fantastic, I mean, I had a lot of fun,
Yeah, okay.
So, and it's a transition from being protected by your parents to standing on your own and establishing your own circle of friends. You're finding people of like values, who think like you, and then from among those pool of people who think like you, who look like you, who share the same values, you will pick one to become your life partner, and then you get married.
That's right.
Then you get married, and then in the what we call the turbulent 30s, you then discover perhaps, this might not have been the right choice,
Right, yeah.
And then you've got the pressures of work, you've got the pressures of family, you've got the pressures of trying to climb up the rat race ladder and all that, So the turbulent 30s is a very uncomfortable part of life, But what I'm trying to say is that if you want to have children, have children early, so that you can finish paying for the education as early as possible. So if you use that yardstick, and if you have your last child, let's say at 30, at 53 you can retire. If you have your last child at 35 plus 23, at 58 you can retire.
Which is also okay, because you have another 15 to 18 years, right?
See, the danger is that if you keep postponing retirement, is that your body does not wait, I mean, if you look at my classmates, we have 23 in class, in my class, I mean, 30% of them are dead, so people say Tun is still alive and kicking ass at 93.
He's an exception though, I think.
No, for every Tun Mahathir to be alive at 93, there will be somebody else that will die at 60 or 55.
That's right.
To make the average 76.
That's right.
So I mean, it's all luck. I mean, if you live long and you're healthy, it's good. But at least you must enjoy your life during the part of life where you're still healthy, your knees are still able to carry you,
Not everybody is Yusuf Hashim. They can climb mountains in their 60s and 70s. But I want to ask you about your time as a parent, right? I think you've got at least one daughter, so at least a couple daughters, couple sons, right? So you've had both genders to jaga. What kind of tips and guidance can you suggest in terms of the optimal parent?
That's a bit difficult.
At what point, how much do you give in to their whims, or how much of a disciplinarian? How much do you push them in studies? Or?
I'm very very conservative, as I said to you. My lifestyle when I was working is quite how do you say it, modest. I mean, when we were living in the UK, working in the UK, all the guys who work in the UK with me from here came back and they bought BMW, they bought Mercedes, and they were using that over there because, a Mercedes over there is so cheap, and these guys buy this Mercedes and all that. And yet I have a family of 4 plus my wife 5. And I had this Ford Mondeo, which I bought second-hand.
Fantastic.
My kids are all grown up, 4 of them being squeezed in the back seats there. I said, that is a lesson in life for you, It's postponing consumption. If you persist in buying, BMW and
so
all that.
they can see.
Yeah, and they see, yes. And I never give them more than enough money to spend. I said, this is what you had. I will give you, at the time, £30, £40, per week, because you need them. They need that for food and all that. And it is actually very, very minimal.
Yeah.
And when I buy things for them, I don't buy expensive things.
Even for yourself, you didn't buy the fancy stuff.
No, I've never owned a Rolex watch in my life. I bought my first Rolex watch after I retired. Not Rolex. I bought an Omega watch after I retired.
And you're not wearing it now.
I've given them all away.
Brilliant.
Because I don't need the watch. This is the thing. The other thing is, when you retire, your time is your own.
Don't need a watch anymore.
There was this billionaire. He had a watch. And in the watch, there was no hands, there was numbers, 1 to 12, but there were a few diamonds floating around the watch case, So this guy asked him, your watch, sir, has got no hour hand or second or the minute hand, So he says, no, I don't need them. People wait for me.
That's all right.
Anyway.
How did you talk to your kids about, what job to have, what education to pursue, how hands-on were you? How did you advise them about boyfriends, girlfriends, future life partners?
Yeah. This is where I think when I spoke about this division of labor, a partnership in
so
marriage,
you left it to Mrs. Yusuff?
Most of the upbringing,
okay,
the education, the values, the values that they have and all that, were mostly done by my wife. And thank goodness she's a fine lady. She's given them values which I thought were fantastic. I just concentrated on my career. I concentrated on bringing the money back and to pay whatever it is. And now looking back, I have some regrets, because I can't remember some of the things that they did, some of the things that she shared with them, even going for their graduation, that kind of thing. Sometimes I don't attend as well, But towards the last part of their education, my last 2 daughters, I suppose I learned the lesson a little bit. Yeah. So I spent time really, for example, sending them to school. I took the time to actually send them to school myself. But before that, my first 2 boys, I just bought a car for the wife, and then she does all the, driving. I don't even, attend that sort of thing. So
that sounds like Sir Alex Ferguson, the former manager of Manchester United. He was so full on with managing the team that he let his wife Kathy run their 3 boys, I think. And it sounds like
precisely what I did, actually, because I think my wife has been a fantastic woman. Yeah. She has taken care of the family, which is why I say that, for modern couples who are both working, I think something is going to give, I mean, if you keep saying that And I notice when they go for dinners, for example, to keep the baby quiet, what do? They give them an iPad.
They'll give the device. It's ridiculous.
Give an iPad. Watch the cartoon while they're eating. I mean, I think this is terrible. What you learn from the internet and what you learn from videos and all that, it's not good for proper upbringing.
Advice for life partners. Because I mean, obviously you've got the ideal partner in life. You're still together 50 years. She did her part, you did your part. But, you find that in the modern era, men look for women of a certain physical characteristic, and women themselves look for a certain material characteristic, i.e. they want a rich husband, and men want a good-looking wife, a good-looking woman. But they seem to overlook the fact that there's many, many more attributes to a life partner than what they are superficially looking for.
There have been many studies done about the phases of life, not phases like my simple phase of education, work, and retirement. There have been people like Gail Sheehy have written about. Have you heard of Gail Sheehy? Yeah. About passages. She's written about the transition, the phases of life. That when she wrote the first book, Passages, she spoke about life being, the puberty, and then the troubling the turbulent 20s, the whatever 30s, and then the roaring 40s. Those days she did that study up to age 50. She found that this present cycle of work, getting ahead in your career, getting children, grandchildren, all that, there were phases. That now it seems she continued with that study. She studied a group of people to see their lifestyle, and when past 50, now she's found that there are new passages. Because in Western societies, for example, in the US, people are actually starting a new life after 50. After being married for 30 or 35 years or even 40 years, they get married again to they get divorced and they get married again to a new partner, and they start a new.
But what about the existing partner then? Wouldn't that throw the whole family into disarray?
Both sides.
Oh,
I'm talking not only one. I'm talking about the lady might find somebody.
So your original wife finds a new partner,
yes,
and off she goes, and you find another partner, yes, and off you go.
So this is in the West, So I'm afraid that this is what is happening over here, because over here among our our datoks, the fashion is to have young trophy wives, They make a lot of money, and they,
yeah, and then they want to prove that they can still do it, right? It's all about virility and show of potency, right?
So I think that's wrong, I mean, I think marriage for me is for life, whatever it is, you have to work it out, You saw good qualities in your partner when you first met.
What are the top 3 most important things one should find in a life partner?
I don't know. I think a give and take attitude, that this forgiving, because no person is perfect, I mean, as a man you've got flaws, and as a woman you also got flaws, So you have to give and you have to take, because if your supposition is that you're going to be together to death do you part, that kind of thing, then you will learn to forgive, But now it's so easy. I mean, people go through three marriages before they are 40.
So easy to just divorce and then find another one, divorce.
So I think there's something wrong with our society now.
Why do you think that's happening?
I think the modern lifestyle of this disposable attitude of last time when we bought a plate of mee, we bring our sia, and we buy and we take it home. There was nothing to throw away. These days, you go and have a tapao packet of char kway teow, you bring back a disposable chopstick, you bring back a plastic bag, you bring back a straw. The straw is in a disposable, cup of water, and then they use a polystyrene bag to pack your char kway teow, and after that, there's a plastic bag outside it. So this disposable mentality, it's I think it's not good, that everything is not permanent, this value of permanency, especially with relationships, is I think going down the tubes. It's going away.
Well, it's surrounding us. I mean, from your mobile phone and your car and your washing machine and your television, they're all built to just last for the 3, 4, 5 years, And then after that, they are rendered obsolete by the new model, the new software upgrade, and the new version of this. It's part of our lifestyle. I don't know how people can change it. I don't know whether society can ever come back to our era.
No, I think it's
of a more permanent.
It starts with the family unit. In my view, this idea of a husband and a wife working together and letting the maid and the television and the iPad looking after the kids, I think it is bad. People might call me a male chauvinist pig for advocating that in life there must be a partnership. Somebody must bring the bread, somebody must look at the family. If both of you insist on being the breadwinners, so you have tension. I mean, the lady,
the two equals will clash.
The lady has got her own funds. The man has got his own funds. I want to do what I want to do because I can afford it. I want to do what I can do because I can afford it. So there is no give and take. So then they split.
No, I agree with you. I agree that in any relationship there's got to be one which is superior to the other's inferior. That's how life has always worked, because yin and yang, opposites, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think the failure or the breaking up of families these days, is because of this. I mean, I don't mind women working, but if you want to work, then
your husband must be at home doing all the other stuff. And I know we're going to get in trouble for this, because the liberalists in society will say, what are these two guys talking about? They just want to preserve the status quo and for men to stay superior.
No. I have. It's
nothing like that.
No, I have relatives where it is the woman, the lady, the wife that works, and the man stays at home. A very close relative. They've got a special needs child, and the man, because the lady earns more, so the man say, okay, I will stay at home and do the cooking, the washing, looking after the special needs child, while the lady works, and their marriage is robust, yeah. And the other 2 or 3 members of the family, their marriage is not so good. In fact, 2 of them, they got 4 brothers and sisters, 3 of them, or 2 of them, they've ended up in divorce.
Yeah, I don't think you can have 2 basically power couples, 2 halves of a power couple. It just doesn't happen. I remember this guy called So Eugene. He was the executive editor of The Star. He was very open about the fact that he spent like maybe 8-9 years of his life as the house husband while his wife is out, working and being the breadwinner. He said that 8 to 9 years with his 2 sons was the most rewarding he had ever experienced in his entire life, because he was hands-on with his 2 kids. He was bathing them, sending them to school, making them breakfast, and he said it was amazing. I mean, not for me, clearly, but horses for courses. But that exact inverse relationship has to happen one way or another.
So if you ask me what is the cause of the problems we have with families, with, divorces, it's this kind of thing, because women in this country at least started working. They went full steam ahead, started working maybe about 30, 40 years ago, Before that, most women don't work, My mother didn't work. Yeah, my wife, she was working, but I persuaded her to
and she graciously
agreed. Yeah. Yes, she agreed. And then, I don't know. I think this is the cause of the way our society is heading now. The lack of proper ethics, proper integrity. I think this is a cause. There's not enough quality upbringing at home,
Yeah. So on to the best 20 years of your life, which is the last 20 years of your life. I'm gonna be out there and say, look, some of your classmates still continue to serve on the boards of their companies, and they're still working. Well, you've spent the last 20 years traversing 145 countries. You've been to the North South Pole, driving around the world. How the hell did you do it? What were your rules and principles for that?
Well, I don't know. In the last, if you view this thing strategically, that life is a series of phases. In the work phase of your life, you must start thinking about your retirement and prepare for it. So
how old were you when you started thinking about retirement?
Well, about 45 or so, 40. So okay. I have interests. At 40, I was very interested in riding my bike all over the place. So I rode to China on my motorbike from here. And
Was that a solo trip?
No, with a group of friends.
With a bunch,
I was interested in biking, so I started the Superbikers Club with 6 other people.
Oh, it was you, was it, in KL?
Yeah,
you guys were the ones making all the noise on the
Yeah,
highway.
we were one of the earliest,
Yeah.
And we were the first to cross the Mekong at Vientiane, to cross into Laos from Thailand and onto China by motorbike. The friendship bridge that the Chinese built to connect Laos and Thailand, they didn't allow motorbikes, So when we came, they didn't allow us, so we hired a lorry, put the bike on the lorry, and we went across and got down there.
That's how you do it?
Yeah. So the thing to do is that if you're interested in something, you got to cultivate the interest. And in the last 4 or 5 or maybe 10 years of your life, if you're thinking that I want to go and do riding, or I want to do traveling, I want to do motoring of some sort when you retire, the last 10 years of your life, parallel to your money investment making thing, you get a group of people, of like-minded people, and you start thinking of a club or something to do this. So I became friendly with people who drive 4x4s. Even
Thomas
while
Fu.
I was working,
Thomas
Fu and company, yes, he's
And
my
he's
Sifu.
He's still somewhere out there right now.
Well,
Isn't
he
it?
just came back from Antarctica. He came back from another trip from around South America. Yeah. So I got in touch with him, and I became friendly with him, and I became a co-driver and that kind of thing, So, and then I was interested in photography, So the last 3-4 years of my life, of my working life, I started this photomalaysia.com. Those days we didn't have WhatsApp and Facebook and all that, so we had this forums, where people join. So I started with a couple of friends a photo community, online photo community called photomalaysia.com, and at its height we had 80,000 members.
You're kidding? That's a lot.
Yeah, so from there, my interest in photography, I created this thing together with friends, of course, and it blossomed. And around the time when Facebook and WhatsApp came out, then this thing started going down. So if you're interested in photography, for example, then do something with like-minded people. If you're interested in motorcycling, get together with them and then do something even while you're working, so that when you retire, you're already established. I was ready to go, when they say, hey, let's go, year 2000, I retired 99. Next week we were going to drive to India. You want to come? Say, yeah, of course. So we drove to India, that kind of thing. You have to prepare, and not only your money side, your investment side, but your activity side, And I wanted to write, for example. I wrote for free. I wrote computer articles, would you believe it, for cheap photo video magazine.
Fantastic.
I was quite a wizard with computers.
Really?
I built my own computers, by the way.
Fantastic. I still see your postings on Facebook. You write amazing postings on the places you've been. Fantastic. And then all your comments, 100, 200 comments, 300 comments. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's an interest. I was interested in writing. As you know, I was also, like you, a contributor for Grid magazine. I was their travel writer. You were their financial analyst. That kind of thing. So I love writing. Like you, I also do not get paid for my writing. But I think you're different because it's your profession.
Small.
Yeah. But for me, I write for free.
Yeah.
I never get any money for writing for Grid and for all the magazines I write.
So while you went on these trips, you had to have a spouse that was kind of like agreeable with this. And and what are the rules that you said, that even if she says no, you go anyway?
My often repeated, must-have factors to do, like what, to have a good retirement, do what you want to do is, 7, as I said, you must have a bit of money, which is your investment portfolio while you're working. And then secondly, you must have health. You must start doing it before your knees give way, before you're attached to a dialysis machine. And then the third one, you must have a compliant spouse, who allows you to go where you want to go a few days, a few months. And if she says no, you must be prepared.
Just go anyway.
You must be prepared to go anyway, and then face the music when you come back and say sorry lah. I will take you to London, or Paris, that kind of thing. And of course, you must, like I said, you must have a group of like-minded friends, and make friends with these like-minded people well before you retire, so that this camaraderie is built up over a long period of time, And then you must have some special skill that you must develop. Like me, I'm interested in writing, I'm interested in photography, I'm interested in motorcycling and 4x4. So I made friends with these kind of people, So you can then eventually, like I said, once you have this kind of skills, you can trade these skills for advantages and benefits in your retirement period. And people say, you made the statement that this guy must be fabulously wealthy and going all over the world and all that.
Well, the assumption outside is that you are, but actually you're quite canny in circumventing a lot of the financial costs of traveling. Of course. Yeah. With Thomas Fu, you volunteered to be a driver, and you volunteered to take photographs,
and you go at subsidized rates.
And you got subsidized rates.
Yeah,
and
but you don't go for free.
You don't go for free. You still have to pay your own airfare, right? And even till today, some of the trips that you do, you've been quite canny about it.
Of course, because it was a cumulative thing. When I went with Thomas Fu around the world, when we drove around the world, I made friends in Ethiopia, in Morocco, in Libya, in Russia,
how many people go to these places?
India, in Tibet, So I make friends, and I keep in touch with them. So when I want to go to Tibet, for example, I pick up the phone or I send them an email. I say, hey, I'm coming with a group of 7 people this date to that date. Can you please arrange for me a tour to go here, there, and everywhere? So by the way, can you get the hotel as well? There are 7 of us. Can you arrange it in such a way that the hotel will give 1 free for the tour leader, for every 10 people that he brings, that sort of thing, So this, you still pay for your airfare and all that. You still pay for your expenses, your food. But at least it is subsidized, because certain hotels, if you book 10 rooms, they will give you 1 for free.
That's right.
If even airlines, you buy 15 tickets and they will give you 1 ticket for free. That's how the travel companies operate. So you dig into this kind of thing, and then you can then subsidize your travels, not fully subsidize it, but enough to make your dollars stretch a little bit longer, So you have to trade after all you go to work, you've been making money for your company, You've been thinking of ideas and things to make money
for yourself.
So that's what I mean. When you are working, start thinking a little bit about how to make money for yourself.
What do you think about this social media now, where, if you have 1 million, 2 million Instagram followers, they'll pay you X number of $1,000 for a posting. I know you're getting into Facebook quite a lot.
I'm not. You might be surprised. I'm not on Instagram.
You're not on Instagram, I know. Yeah, and I think you, conscious or unconscious, but you're mainly focused on Facebook.
No, Facebook has got a limited number of you're allowed to have only, I think, 5,000 friends or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, you kind of like, what about Mark Zuckerberg's got like 1 million friends or something?
Mark Zuckerberg earns Facebook.
He owns the bloody thing.
No, I think you're allowed to have only 5,000 friends. But Instagram is unlimited.
Yeah.
So
wasn't it Kylie Jenner, one of these? She's only 20 years old. She's got like a million, whatever.
All these famous people, actresses and all that. Yeah. What are we? But anyway, I prefer Facebook because I like to write, and I write stories. It's for my own pleasure, I like to share, adventures, things that I've seen, and the company, a commentary to accompany the pictures I take. I don't do this for money. Yeah. I've never sold any pictures, but I'm working with Cancer Research Malaysia to have about 40 of my pictures to be sold to raise about $500,000 for cancer research. So I'll do it for charity, but not for personal.
I understand. And I think a lot of people, when they ask you, or they ask me, how do you make money on social media? How does it generate revenue? And actually, the benefits come quite strangely, because, for example, for you, when you make a posting about one of your trips to Africa, about that famous one where the woman is blowing up a cow's udder, I think, or something, to generate the milk, and then the amount of comments you get, It sells a lifestyle that Yusuf Hashim has become famous for. And then it becomes kind of like a virtuous cycle. So the benefit is not direct in terms of the posting and the comments, but it sells the notion that you're this guy that is the soft stuff of bucket dreams and legend and dreams, and suddenly, you know, the kind of people that want to come on your trips is huge, and you've got a list of people you can just choose from. And then from there you can kind of like make decisions and you can well, not monetize it, but work to your advantage, right?
No, actually, I was the retail marketing director of Shell. So, marketing is in my blood. What I do is basically marketing. When I write articles to accompany my pictures, it's indirectly marketing, It's trying to create feelings of people wanting to go to the places that I do. So it's part of an overall or a bigger.
That's a larger.
I don't want to say this on live, It's
there's a method to the madness.
Yes, there is method to the madness. It's just like those internet giants, They give you free Gmail, They give you free this, free that.
It ain't for free, man.
The aim eventually is to get eyeballs. Because once you get eyeballs, then you sell advertising space. Right. So when I write articles, I want eyeballs. Yeah. When people read these eyeballs, then read these articles, and then they get this feeling. I want to go there too.
Absolutely.
So when I post a picture of me climbing up Mount Erta Ale, the intent is actually to make you interested enough to come and join me. So if 20 of you come, then maybe I can get maybe half price for
defer your costs, so that your retirement funds stretch a little bit longer.
Yes, yeah. So that's what it is. It's a whole grand scheme.
Not everybody is as canny as you, Yusuff. So I remember you told me you became a certified pilot of one of those things, those parasails, at the age of 68?
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You were on the edge of a volcano at 65. You did Everest Base Camp in your 60s. Is there a particular regime that you follow to stay fit?
No. I'm just like...
Or are you just genetically fortunate?
I suppose I'm a bit lucky, because I think I've got good genes. I have no special regime. I've never exercised in my life.
Are you serious?
I eat what I want to eat.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. So thankfully, I think my mother and my father have given me good genes.
So what do you think of all this notion that you got to eat well, you got to sleep well, you got all that?
No, I think you have to eat. You have to do things in moderation, But my attitude is that I noticed that I can get away with a lot of things. Yeah. So I push the limit.
Because I know you eat meat. I know
we were looking at the steak just now, with all the marbling there.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people, they will swear that the plant-based diet is the one to go for, but
my favorite food is a steak.
Yeah. I've seen your postings from Argentina where you're tucking to this amazing tomahawk.
So I'm just lucky, but some people are quite unlucky. Genetically, maybe, they can't, they can't take rich foods, and you have to exercise. I never exercise. The most tiring exercise I've done is actually 9 holes of golf.
So when you did Everest Base Camp, how old were you?
65, I think.
65?
Yeah.
Did you not train for that?
Well, I bought a walker later, put it into my storeroom, and I did that.
You never used it, did you?
No, I used it for 3 weeks before I went, and after I never used it. It's still there.
I have a friend who just went to Everest Base Camp with his son. His son's, I think, 16, 17 years old. He's a marathon runner. He does huge cycle rides. Very, very fit. He said it was one of the most difficult things he's ever done. Right? He's my age. He's 47.
Nah, they're trying to pull your leg. It's so easy. It's a walk in the park. Yeah. You're not racing against anybody.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not.
Everest Base Camp is 7,000 meters.
68-year-old me can do it without any proper preparation.
What was your recollection of that trip?
Fantastic. You see, you get breathless when you pass about 4,000 meters, and that's normal. So the trick is you should get one porter, personal private porter for yourself, because many people, when they go on these trips, they get one porter, they share amongst 5 people. So get one porter for yourself. They're charged only about $25 US a day, and then you give them a couple of hundred as tips later on. So they become your personal porter. They carry everything for you. And you're not in a race with anybody, so you walk at your own pace.
Take your time and you put her along.
And I go there for the photography. So when I see a nice mountain, I stop. I take pictures and I sit down for a while, drink, and then when we find along the way there are many of these lodges and coffee shops.
Did
and
you
all
do
that.
a solo trip or with a bunch of guys?
No, with a group
Bunch
of
of
friends.
guys, yeah.
Group of friends. So they're all ahead. They reach the place 3 or 4 hours ahead of me, but I'm still slogging along. I'm not racing with anybody.
With your lens and your camera. and
Yeah,
stuff.
no, I don't carry them. My porter carries them. So when I want, he carries everything. I want a camera, please. Camera, shoot. A towel.
That's the way to do it. That is the way to do it.
That is the way to do it.
That is the way. It's not a race.
Yeah, you just walk. And if you're tired, you stop. And you take. So of course, in order not to feel so so embarrassed, stopping all the time, say, pretend to take picture.
So how many times? So you've done was that the highest you've ever been?
Annapurna, Everest.
Annapurna's lower, right?
Slightly lower, but no, you don't go to the mountain. You go to the base camp. The base camp is.
I think Annapurna base camp is about 4,200 meters.
Doesn't matter. It's it's
high
doable.
enough.
It's
Yeah.
just a walk. So when you feel tired, you just stop.
So what were what gave you these ideas? Was it because of someone within your group who said, "Hey, let's go here, let's go there," or did you have a bucket list of places that you wanted to do? I mean, I know some people want to go to Machu Picchu, or some people want to go and see the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
No, the climbing mountains is actually something that is inside. When I was in the military college, Royal Military College, we. During the holidays, we have many expeditions. We go camping and all that. So one of the expeditions we went was to climb Gunung Korbu. You can volunteer what you want to do. I purposely chose the expedition to climb Gunung Korbu. Gunung Korbu is the second highest mountain in Malaysia, in Peninsular Malaysia. Is in yes, and it's on the just off Kinta. So we had a 35 kilogram pack of rations and camping equipment, and we're plodding along. Plodding along, and I was right at the back. In my head, I actually wanted to turn back and run, and go home. Because it was that painful. We carry extra boots because the boots tend to tear when you step on all kinds of things. So I wanted to run. I wanted to go back many times until after the second day we camped. I cannot run anymore because now you cannot go back. You don't know how to go back.
Yeah.
So you just carry on. So the feeling you get once you get to the summit is fantastic. And all the pains that you went through, you say, "Wow, this is worth it." No, I did it. So that feeling you can only get when you get up there. You cannot explain it. I mean, all this people climb Everest and said, why do you climb Everest? Because it's there, that kind of thing. They just cannot explain the feeling that you have when you go there. But when you're climbing, you're walking, it's terrible. So once you get that, then you continue to push yourself to get back that adrenaline rush.
Yeah, over
of
and
having
over
done.
and over
Yes.
again.
So
So was that the trip? Was that the one climb that put the seed of mountaineering?
When I was
like
16, 17 years old, when I did that Gunung Korbu was a very was a very significant learning point for me. The feeling of this adrenaline rush, the satisfaction of having climbed that mountain despite all this pain, carrying 35 kilos on your back for 7 days, climbing up and coming down. So you keep looking for that kind of repeat adrenaline rush, and that's what drives you.
So you're one of the original adrenaline junkies.
I've done the bungee at Victoria Falls.
Yeah, Victoria Falls.
Yes.
Victoria Falls is the one in Argentina?
Livingston in
Canada.
The border of Zambia and Malawi.
Oh, Angel Falls.
Victoria
So
Falls.
Victoria, okay, the wide one, right?
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Oh, beautiful. So
Did you shit your pants?
No, I didn't know. You must go into it. I've done the Lake Taupo, bungee jump. I mean, the Queenstown one in New Zealand. So
Which is the best?
Oh, well, Victoria Falls, of course, is the highest.
Yeah. Holy shit, man. How did you feel when you were coming down?
Great. That's what drives you to go to want more, So anyway.
What about when you went driving? You've done KL to London twice, right? You've done the
several
African
times,
continent.
yeah.
You stayed in the eastern side because
yeah.
the western side is war conflict ridden, right? Which was the best?
They're all different. I mean, you cannot say one is the best. They're all different. It's the driving, looking at new places, experiencing new feelings, meeting new people, that kind of thing. So you cannot say that driving around South America is better than driving from Africa, from Cape Town to Cairo, or better than driving across the Sahara. They're all different experiences, and you get different pictures. I go for the photography. So you should do these things,
I think you've also been very vocal about the importance of travel in terms of broadening one's perspective, because a lot of Malaysians, in fact, a lot of people around the world, they don't travel enough, and they become very parochial, very narrow-minded, very, very tunnel vision in terms of how they view the world and other people, other cultures, other religions, whatever. Tell us about that.
No, I think travel is beneficial because travel broadens your minds. Travel rids your mind of bigotry. When you travel, you meet people of different skin colors, different languages. They look different. Some wear clothes, some don't wear clothes, and it makes you realize that human beings, whether in Malaysia or in the depths of Africa, or in the in India, or in Tibet, they're all the same. They, like you and me, we want food, we want shelter, we want a good life for our kids. We want clean water to drink, we want nice house to live in, security, and we want love, and we want to give love. So everybody in the world has got the same needs as you and I. So why is it that you think that you are special? You're not special. Why do you think that somebody whose skin color is black is suspect? I saw one truck in Africa. The guy driving the truck has got a sticker in front of his of his truck to say that I'm black, therefore I'm a suspect.
Yeah.
So when you travel, it broadens your mind. You see everybody in the world has got the same needs as you. They're exactly like you, even though they speak a different language, they worship a different god. Over here in this country, they say my God is better than your God. That kind of thing.
And life becomes a bit.
Yeah. So I think travel broadens your minds, and it makes you a more forgiving person. You give and take. The next guy. The same blood is running through our veins. If I'm in trouble, your blood can save my life.
Yeah.
Vice versa. So
right.
So why is this
That's
need
right.
for
That's
and
right.
of course I'm a bit vocal about this kind of thing. So I shall not say it over. Over
No,
this
you
thing.
should.
I should.
So that many more people will realize that traveling is much more important than we think.
Yeah.
73 years old. I know because we've interacted many times in the last few months, years. I know you're one of those driven individuals. You're still planning your trips. You're still doing, your expeditions. You've got I don't know how many terabytes of data that you want to compile in books. You've got all kinds of gigs now in social media. I know big brands want to associate with you. We've done Mercedes together. How do you stay? How do you stay motivated? How do you stay driven? How do you stay just on the case?
I don't know. When you're retired, you got nothing else on your mind, and you're driven by passion. It's photography is a passion for me. I've got, as you say, something like 56 terabytes of raw photographs at 1.95 million raw images. What do I do with all this? My intent is that when I'm no longer able to walk, I will then sit down and maybe start finishing the 6 books, work in progress that I've got now, and maybe when I can, I will do some charity work with my pictures. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm working with Cancer Research Malaysia. Do you know that they're doing fantastic research? There are certain cancers which are typically unique to Asian society, that's never been researched. So in Malaysia, Cancer Research Malaysia is doing work in this aspect, and they do not do it with funds from the government, but they're doing it on a voluntary freelance basis.
So how do your photographs help cancer research? Because I know the people there, some of them are pretty good. and they're doing some good stuff over there.
I'm donating to them 40 of my best pictures, and then I will get them printed at my cost on canvas, maybe 1 or 2 meters size.
And then the funds.
And then I will then donate the 40, and these are numbered prints, and they will then have this auction, and then 100% of the proceeds will go to them, and the cost I will bear.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
fantastic.
It costs about maybe 1,000 ringgit per print on canvas, because it's 1.5 meters by maybe 1 or 2 meters, And then I spend maybe 30,000-40,000, but it's okay. It's my
it's money. It's good
my
money.
giving back to
It's good money well
society.
spent. Yeah.
So I'm now in the process. I've been working on it for the last 2-3 months, collecting the picture, making sure that which one I want to do. And then by March or April, when I come back from Antarctica, I think I'll get it ready by then.
So when will the exhibition be? Maybe you can.
We are targeting it sometime in March or April. Okay. So together with the prints, I will do a book, a coffee table book, maybe short narrative on the pictures itself, and that book also will be sold online, printed on demand, and again 100% of the proceeds will go to cancer research. I'm targeting to raise at least 500,000 ringgit.
That's amazing. That's really amazing.
So that as a start, and I'll give them rights to number 1 to number 10. And if in the future anybody else wants to buy it, then they can have it printed on their own at their own cost, and then sell.
And again, cancer research.
Yeah. So for each print, there'll be a series of 10 numbered, and it'll be donated to cancer research.
Fantastic. I can't think of a more fulfilling venture. How will you select your pictures? Will it be based on something which speaks?
This is what I've been working on for the last 2-3 months, and thinking about what should the theme be.
Yeah.
I initially wanted to show how beautiful our world is, how varied our world is, what are the cultures and all that. But I'm slowly zeroing in onto maybe. Some pictures which illustrate certain qualities of humankind, the differences and how beautiful these differences are, So I haven't really finalized it, but I've got about maybe 100 to 200 prints or pictures that I'm now looking seriously. So maybe a bit later, I will probably get 1 or 2 curators to come and help me curate, a proper, sequence.
Well, I haven't done as much traveling as you, but for people who have done extreme adventures like yourself, they say that the one thing that they discover about people when they're traveling is the generosity, the honesty, the realness of the people that they meet on the road. And some of these people, they're ordinary people. They could be farmers, they could be normal, just ordinary salt of the earth people, but they're the nicest, most unhostile people that you can ever come across. And this goes against the grain. Before they go traveling, people say, "Oh, you should be afraid of going through Iran or the Khyber Pass because they'll kill you with their machine guns." But they say it's not the case. Is that true?
Many of this thing are being propagated by media, which are very biased.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a deliberate effort by Western media.
So you do agree that this?
Yeah, of course. They try to run down Iran, for example.
Yeah.
If you go and travel in Iran, it is one of the most friendly countries in the world. If you go through Esfahan, for example, the city square, every evening, weekends, the families will come and camp there, and if you walk through that, they will come and offer you tea and say, come and sit down with us. And we were sitting in this coffee shop, I mean, we're obviously like foreigners because, we have Chinese friends and all that, and we're nowhere like,
look completely alien to
like
them.
in Iran. Yeah. So I'm sitting here with 3 or 4 friends, Chinese friends and Malay friends, and having tea, And then when we want to pay, I go, no, don't pay. Fantastic. That guy over there has paid. Fantastic. And then he waves, And of course we went there to say thank you to him. And what did he ask you? He says, "How do you like Iran?" He wanted to practice his English, he said, I've been learning English, he said. I wanted to practice my English. So they're very nice, And then they're very, very friendly. I mean, in Iran, it is against the law, or it is the law that if a traveler passes by your house and he asks you for water and you're in the desert, for example, your house, you have to give him the water. And in fact, outside many Iranian houses in the outskirts of town, they have got the spots where there are cups, that travelers can pass by and take from their house and drink.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, and they're so friendly and so polite, I think this Western media with their own agenda trying to run down Iran,
so to kind of like justify their war on mass, weapons of mass
so
destruction.
go and visit Iran before you make all kinds of assumptions about how bad they are.
Yeah, a friend of mine was a photographer as well. When he traveled through the Middle East, he said that it's quite uncanny because he was in market squares and there was a little skirmish run about a few hundred meters from them, and all the camera crews were there, CNN and all BBC and all them, tiny scuffle, right? And he was in the marketplace having a cup of coffee, and it was the most peaceful situation. But because it was just homed in on that little one scuffle, it was beamed all around the world and being portrayed.
Yeah. Media people, they've got agendas.
Yeah, these bloody media people.
Not bloody. But, even our local newspapers, and I see, I in fact, I wrote to the editor of Star, these naughty things they've done, They write the story in one 3-column place, story about one lady being raped, and then they put Nilofar's picture next to another story
naughty,
in the same
right?
thing.
So naughty.
Yeah, it's the first time you read, you say, Nilofar got raped or something. So,
ridiculous, right?
It's idiotic. It's not. You shouldn't do that.
No, media people do that all the time.
Now, if you see the Star, the way that they are pushing certain ideas.
Yeah,
so
okay. I don't want to out my own industry, but some of the new ministers within the Malaysian cabinet, I just get this uncomfortable notion that some of them, I know they're trying hard, and I know that they've got good intentions. Their heart is in the right place, but they're being, I guess, in terms of the coverage, there's a kind of like an agenda against some of them. I'm not going to say which ones, right? And I think it's a bit unfair, and I don't know why media people do this. Maybe it's because of the political ownership of these newspapers.
But I think all these things going on in the media and all that is all
don't believe what you read.
Driven by
agenda.
Politics, by a political agenda.
So do you read the newspaper still, or do you just not bother with it?
I do. When I sit in my throne, on my throne, when I don't have a newspaper, I've got my Surface Pro there and then reading all kinds of things. But I do still read newspapers.
In your opinion, which is the most?
I only read the Star because you subscribe to it online. They deliver the papers. So, but I have some favorites. I read, of course, Malaysia Kini, and I read Steady Aku.
Steady Aku is good.
And of course, to balance, I read Raja Petra. I read Papa Gomo.
Papa Gomo's a character.
Yeah, I read all of that in order to get a balanced view. So, but so long as you know what's going on, and you make up your mind what is right, what is wrong.
Do you think Malaysia is in a better place now?
I think we're starting to get to a better place, okay? And if we were going on as we were in the past, then we probably would never get to a better place, But I think we're on the track to go to a better place, And I was, for example, I was so happy that the 2 demonstrations that we had this weekend was
peaceful,
went without. But I was also a bit appalled by what went on at those demonstrations, on the kind of things that they were doing, and completely uncalled for. It's a very bad. A critical thinker will look at what they were saying, and I think it's bad.
Well, even in America, you've got various smaller segments of society that still continue to behave. Even in the UK, some of the richest countries in the world still have certain swaths of society which don't have necessarily the same kind of like intellectual breadth that the learned society might have. I don't know whether it's an education thing or whether it's an upbringing thing, or I don't know. But the world is developing and maturing at different speeds.
I think generally I believe we are onto the right path. Slowly, we're getting where we should be going. Yeah. But it's a very steep learning curve, and it's a long journey. Because of insecurities of people, and Anyway, I don't think we should be talking about politics because this kind of thing is quite sensitive. I have very, very strong views.
But you're right. I think Malaysia is moving in the right path.
We are getting
eventually,
there. We're getting there. Yeah.
The Rome will be built in that day, but it takes a long time.
No, I mean, to see almost 30,000, 40,000 people in not messing around, doing crazy things, wrecking windows and all that. I think it's good. I think it's good, but their thinking is still, I think,
okay.
Neanderthal.
Knuckle draggers. So Antarctica, in a couple of months, you've got your work with cancer research. What's next for you? What's the next huge challenge?
Next year, I've got my calendar quite full. Next month, I'm off to Antarctica for the 4th time.
Incredible.
I'm bringing about 60, 70 friends. We've
60 to 70 now.
Yes, we've more or less chartered a huge ship that can take about 100 people, and it's a shared cost kind of a thing, and we'll be sailing across Drake's Passage.
Fantastic.
If you've heard about Drake's Passage, it's named after Francis Drake, one of the early explorers.
And what's the cost of one of those trips?
About 15,000 US.
About 65,000 ringgit or so.
About that, yes, about that.
Which is, you can kind of almost justify that if you're going to do that once in a lifetime for your
Yeah,
bucket
it's a
list.
once in a lifetime thing, So I think everybody should try and do it. But like I said, when I do these things, if I bring 60 people, they'll give me one at half price or something like that, that kind of thing. So that's how I help subsidize my own travel. So I'll be going to Antarctica to sail across the Drake's Passage end of this year. In January the 8th, I'll be there until end of January. And then I come back. I got 1 or 2 short trips to the Philippines and all that. In August, I will go back to the Serengeti, the final time, because I
film the wildebeest?
To shoot the wildebeest migration.
Yes.
And immediately after that, I will fly straight to Svalbard. I've chartered a
Again?
ship.
Yeah.
Yes, I've chartered a ship for about 21 friends to try and make another attempt to go to the North Pole in summer.
Did you not make it the last time?
No, because ice stopped us.
Froze over.
About 600 kilometers.
So Svalbard is in Norway, is it?
Yes. No, Svalbard is north of Norway. It's a Spitsbergen. It used to be called Spitsbergen. And then after that, I will come back, and I've got a recce plan to go and survey Wrangel Island. I will sail from Kamchatka through the Bering Strait into Wrangel Island, and the beauty about Wrangel Island is it's where the Russian Institute of Polar Bear Research is. So,
holy shit, man.
So,
those are proper trips.
So, Nikolai Ovsyannikov, the deputy director of the Russian Institute of Polar Bear Research there, is a friend of mine. He was with me when we went to Svalbard the first time. And another guy, Morten Jorgensen, who wrote the book Polar Bear on the Brink, about how polar bears are going extinct.
Is that true?
Because there are only about 22,000 polar bears left in the world. Every country in the world abutting the Arctic Ocean has banned the killing of polar bears. But Canada and the US are shooting for sport
Still.
750 polar bears every year.
Still.
So at this rate of depletion, by about 2025, my friend Nikolai and Morten tells me that polar bears are going to be near extinct. Yeah. So even Russia has banned the killing of polar bears since 1957. Can you imagine? But in Alaska and in West Greenland, Canada, the Inuits, the Eskimos, they've got licenses they're allowed to shoot polar bears, for their their ancestral rights and all that. So what they do now is that they can kill, but they no longer need to kill polar bear for survival. So they auction their license.
You're kidding.
To the American or foreigners or whoever wants to buy the license to shoot this polar bears. And
That's
they sell it
insane.
for 40,000, 50,000 kind of
The closest I've been to a polar bear is at Singapore Zoo. So this guy was 7 or 8 foot tall. You know what they say about climate change and how the polar ice caps are melting and the rising sea levels are rising? Is that true?
You see, the polar bear, the food of the polar bear is the seals, and they hunt the seals on the floating ice packs, So those days when the climate was the ice packs were closer to Greenland, closer to land, so they didn't have to go so far. But now you want to see polar bear, you have to really sail out quite far out into the Arctic Ocean, because many of these ice floes are further out, they melt a bit earlier, so they are more away from land, because they catch the seals on this floating ice, So if this thing is too far out in the ocean, when they want to come back for their hibernation, then they got to swim hundreds of miles, for the next, to sleep in the next winter. So yes, but I think global warming and all that is not too visible an impact on polar bears. What I found most sad is that in the Arctic Ocean, 700 kilometers from anywhere near civilization, you get a small island, small island. What do you see? Plastic. You see plastic bottles, you see fishing, fishing floats, you see fishing nets, you see polystyrene cases, all being washed ashore, So when we go, many of us are quite concerned about these things. We pick what we can, and take it back on the ship, and then when we get to shore...
That is insane.
Because this is the thing that's actually more worrying than all your so-called...
Yeah, I've seen on YouTube, I think off the coast of Hawaii, there's this area where the currents collect. There's this huge, is several kilometers long, and all the plastics...
Floating,
Have you heard about that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
because in places where the nearest humankind is about 700 kilometers away, you find plastics on the shore. There's nobody there. Nobody's ever lived there. But you find fishing nets, fishing floats, polystyrene boxes, fish boxes. Plastic, drink bottles, all being washed ashore. And you find whales beaching and dead. Why? When they cut open the stomach, they find plastic bag in it. Because the whale will eat krill. They open their mouth wide and they take in everything. And then all these plastics get in and they fill up the stomach. And they starve to death because the stomach gets filled with all kind of plastic waste and it doesn't come out. It doesn't dissolve. So they die.
I can't say. Even at this point in time where there's so much awareness about climate change and environmental degradation, I don't think enough is being done to address, the use of plastics.
So you see turtles, sea turtles with straw in their nostrils.
You saw that also?
Yeah, you can see videos on the internet.
Maybe that should be one of your themes for maybe not for cancer research, but the kind of stuff that you see when you travel, you take photographs. I'm sure you have.
Yes, I have. I've got all kinds of. So that's why this. Photography thing that I'm doing, I'm still trying to figure out what is the most relevant thing that I should highlight. I've got pictures for everything, so maybe I can make it into 4 parts. Maybe one is the environment, one is the diversity of mankind, and maybe the third part is the beauty of the earth, of this little blue planet, and then maybe the last one something to do with different customs, that kind of thing, that picture of this guy, this lady blowing into the thing to stimulate milk. It should be interesting. But anyway, so travel more. You see a lot of things. So I'm trying to encourage people to retire earlier and then go and see the world. But then don't make traveling to be the thing that everybody should do. Because I think. People mistake that I'm trying to don't make the mistake. I'm trying to persuade you to become a photographer, to go and see the world, because many people have got different interests. Some people retire, they want to go and get a master's degree or a doctorate. Some people want to become an artist, to start painting, that kind of thing. So the point I'm making is that you should have something in your mind to do that you're passionate about. During your retirement years. Don't become a cliche retiree. Don't become a school bus driver for your grandkids. Don't start to think that, retirement is the beginning of the end, waiting for death kind of thing, Retirement is the best part of your life, And the way to do it is to think strategically, to say that the purpose of my life is to have a good time towards the end after I've worked and raised or saved enough or made enough money, and then to spend it and then do what I've been wanting to do. I mean, for me, it's four things. I mean, I wanted to write, I wanted to travel, I wanted to take pictures. Those are the 3 or 4 things that I wanted to do, and that's what drives my retirement. That's what I think keeps me alive. If I were to sit down there and wait for my 12 o'clock for me to send my grandson to school,
you'll send you nuts.
Send you nuts. You're right.
Every time I see you, every time I meet you, this huge inspiration to me. So, I mean, you are one of my sifus, Yusuff. So I hope that what you've shared, the last couple of hours will really be a source of inspiration to anybody who watches this anywhere in the world, and for them to really, rethink how they live life and rethink how they look at their careers. And I think that, I think really your legacy will be the amount of inspiration.
That's one more message I want to pass on. For retirees, many people retire, and then they have a small sum of money, that they get from retirement benefits, and then they go and invest this into some kind of a business or whatever, thinking of trying to make money, I think this is wrong. When you retire, it is not the time to start investing in new ventures, You are putting your whole nest egg into something that's not certain, and people don't understand that when you see a successful company in the supermarket or in the shopping center, you only see 40% who are successful. Right. The 60% who have been closing shop, so many times. You go now and see, how many times they've been changed. Of ownership, and new businesses are coming up, So when you retire, for goodness sakes, do not start thinking of investing into some new business.
Especially if you're not financially literate.
Yeah.
I mean, so many horror stories about people who invested in gold schemes and all kinds of schemes, and they lost their pants, and they've
that one, this gold scheme thing is pure greed. It's just remember that you cannot get something for nothing.
That's right. And the more supernormal the returns, the more supernormal the risk.
It's nonsense. So when you retire, spend your money, The time for making money is when you're working, And when you're working, save your money, postpone consumption. And when you retire, spend it.
Because one of your favorite sayings, if not your favorite saying, is not your money until you spend it.
Precisely. Yesterday, somebody sent me a picture, because I was talking about retirement and all. They sent me a picture of some billionaire who's 100 years old and still working.
That's ridiculous.
My point I've been making all over the place is that, if you spend, this billionaire spends $1 million a day, starting from 1st of January until the 31st of December, he would have spent 365 million. By the time the end of the year comes, his net worth would have increased by more than 365
because
million.
Of even at 4% annually.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So, that's not his money. Yeah. Why does he persist in making more and more money that he cannot spend?
And you've got stories from your classmates who are still, some of them, not going to mention any names,
of course,
who are still attending board meetings and still pushing the envelope. Professionals like doctors and lawyers as well.
I think slowly I've been winning over a few of my friends, trying to tell them that
coming with you on your trips.
Yeah, not coming with me on my trips, but thinking seriously about retiring. Professionals like doctors and lawyers and businessmen, architects and that kind of people, they will never retire. Tomorrow they're dead. Today they're still working.
Yeah, that's
because
right. That's the sad tragedy of it.
Because they this opportunity cost of stopping work, because they when they work, money comes in, and if they go on holiday, they will tell you, they say, hey, I'm paying 20,000 for this holiday trip, but actually I'm paying more, because every day that I stop, I'm not earning 10,000 a day. This kind of thinking will never make them stop. People who own banks, for example, the billionaire who own
the guy
the biggest bank.
We shall not mention names.
we shall not mention names. But he's a billionaire. He's got 3 or 4 billion. He's still working. He's 80. He's
more than 80 now.
He's more than 80. He's still working and earning more and more money. I mean, why don't they take that money and put it to some use? You know, I mean, for example, if Bill Gates, who is worth $40 billion, were to give 1 million, you know, to the head of a family in Africa, you know, who's poor, you know, I mean, they would be set up for life. You know, don't give him the money, but give him something that's worth 1 million to start a business. I mean, you know how they can change, you know. And he's got 40 billion.
Well, Bill Gates is different because he started his foundation with his wife, and he's been doing amazing things. And he's nowhere near. I mean, the guy who runs the bank in Malaysia, he's too old, you know, and there's quite a lot of them who are too old to change.
No, that's why I say the wealthiest people in the world today are widows of silly men, silly rich men who didn't know how to spend their money.
And then when they died, they left all their money to their wives, who are now enjoying it on their behalf.
And the wives take lovers.
What's the one from Hong Kong? Nina Wang, I think. Or is it Nina Wang? She's the bit of an oddball looking one with the small hairstyle, and she's the daughter of a wife of a billionaire, I think.
Yes, I don't know. I heard stories about, you know, I mean, these rich people can sue you from across the ocean, so we shall not mention it.
It's been an absolute pleasure. You've been a constant source of inspiration to me and everybody also listens to you. So thank you again. And I mean, again, 2019, amazing year for you, amazing trip. So good luck.
Thank you.
See
thank you.
you
It's nice, you know, letting off steam. You know, I just wish more and more people would retire early. You know, the purpose of work is to earn enough so that you can spend it. I mean, the purpose of life is not to work till you die.
Thank you.
Okay, John, thanks very much. I enjoyed myself. So.